I was arrested in front of half the city. Police lights filled the parking lot while officers surrounded my truck, like I was some kind of criminal mastermind. People filmed everything. Phones everywhere. Someone shouted, "That's the guy who's been hoarding food." In less than 10 minutes, I went from an anonymous guy buying supplies to the internet's newest villain. They dragged me out of the driver's seat and slammed me against the hood. Hands where I can see them. I didn't resist. I didn't argue. Because I already knew something they didn't. In exactly 6 days, the world was going to collapse. And everything they were about to accuse me of was the only reason my family would still be alive when it did. To understand why the police were pointing rifles at me in a supermarket parking lot, we need to go back 20 days. 20 days before the apocalypse. And 20 days before I won the lottery. The first time I died, it was slow. Not dramatic. Not heroic. Just painful. The zombies didn't even rush me at first. They surrounded me. Dozens of them, moving closer while I swung a pipe like it would actually save me. My arms were already shaking. I hadn't eaten real food in weeks. The first bite hit my shoulder. The second tore into my arm. After that it didn't matter. The screaming stopped pretty quickly. Then everything went black. And then I woke up. Standing outside a bank. Holding a lottery ticket. My heart was racing so hard I thought I was still dying. Cars drove past. People walked down the street. A kid laughed somewhere nearby. Normal life. For a few seconds I just stood there shaking. Because the memories were still fresh. The smell of decay. The sounds of people screaming. The feeling of being eaten alive. Then I looked down at the ticket in my hand. $50 million. Exactly the same ticket I had bought 20 days before the apocalypse in my previous life. Only this time, I remembered everything. The first thing I did was run. Not to the bank. To a restaurant. A small place across the street that sold the cheapest egg fried rice in the city. I ordered one plate and sat down. When the food arrived, I just stared at it for a moment. Rice. Eggs. Oil. Simple food. But in the apocalypse, rice had become a luxury. For 3 months I survived on canned beans, stale crackers, and whatever scraps I could find. I picked up a spoon and took a bite. And I started crying. Right there in the restaurant. 3 months of hunger ended with one bite of egg fried rice. Nobody in the restaurant understood why a grown man was crying over a $6 meal. But I did. Because in my last life, I died starving. After I finished eating, I didn't go straight to the bank. Instead I went to a costume shop. I bought a giant mascot suit. One of those ridiculous ones that looks like a smiling cartoon bear. Then I walked into the bank wearing it. No cameras recognizing my face. No curious strangers asking questions. Just a guy in a mascot suit claiming a lottery prize. After taxes, I walked out with $40 million. $40 million. Last time I celebrated. I called my girlfriend. I bought a sports car. I told everyone. That mistake got me killed. This time I did something different. I sent one text message. We're done. Hope you and Shin Kong are happy. Then I blocked her. In my previous life, I only discovered her cheating after the apocalypse started. Turns out she'd been seeing Shin Kong for months. The only reason she stayed with me was the money. If she hadn't known about the lottery ticket, she would have dumped me long before the world ended. So this time I saved both of us the trouble. No drama. No explanation. Just gone. Then I checked the date. 20 days. That's how long humanity had left. I didn't celebrate. I didn't travel. I started preparing. The first thing I bought was a house. Not in the city center. Not an apartment. A villa in the suburbs. 3 floors. Surrounded by other villas instead of massive apartment towers. In the apocalypse, population density means death. More people means more zombies. Fewer neighbors means better odds. The house itself was solid. Deep foundation. Reinforced concrete. But it wasn't enough. Because in the apocalypse the biggest threat isn't zombies. It's people. Desperate people. Hungry people. People willing to kill for a bottle of water. So I hired the best renovation company in the city. Every window was replaced with bulletproof glass. One-way privacy film so nobody outside could see inside. The exterior walls were reinforced and soundproofed. Because zombies hunt by sound. Even small noises can attract hundreds. At the current construction speed, the manager told me it would take 20 days. I shook my head. You have 10. He laughed at first. Until I showed him the money. Suddenly 10 days sounded very possible. Why the rush, he asked. I gave him a simple answer. My family's visiting soon. I want to surprise them. That part wasn't a lie. In my previous life, my parents were supposed to visit right before the apocalypse. They never made it. The last thing I ever heard was my mother's voice on the phone saying they would arrive in a few days. After that, nothing. I never found them. Never knew if they survived. This time I wasn't taking that risk. I called them immediately. Told them I missed them. Bought their plane tickets myself. Earliest flight possible. While the house was being rebuilt, I started buying supplies. Quietly. Carefully. During the day I supervised construction. At night I moved supplies into the house. Rice. Flour. Cooking oil. Salt. Soy sauce. Vinegar. Instant noodles. Bottled water. Canned food. 20 cases of everything. Then medicine. Painkillers. Antibiotics. Bandages. Basic survival gear. I couldn't buy too much in one place. If people realized someone was hoarding supplies, they'd remember. And in the apocalypse, remembered names become targets. So I drove across the city. Different stores. Different neighborhoods. Slowly building a stockpile. But I wasn't fast enough. Because on day 10, everything went wrong. And it started with a phone call I never expected to receive. The call came from my ex-girlfriend. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Her voice sounded sweet. Too sweet. Hey, I heard you won the lottery. Of course she had. Money travels faster than the truth. I also heard you bought a house, she continued. A big one. I didn't respond. In my last life, this exact conversation ended with her convincing me to celebrate. That celebration turned into a party. The party turned into dozens of people knowing I had supplies. And when the world collapsed, those same people came back. Not as friends, but as raiders. So this time I stayed calm. What do you want? I asked. She paused, clearly surprised I wasn't excited to hear from her. I just thought we should talk. No, another pause. Then her voice hardened. You're acting strange. You have no idea, I said. And I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But 3 hours later, she showed up at the construction site. With Shen Kong. Shen Kong was the type of guy who always looked confident. Designer clothes. Expensive watch. The kind of smile that says he thinks he's the smartest person in every room. He wasn't smiling when he saw me. My ex walked toward me first. You didn't need to block me, she said. I did. She ignored the comment and looked around the property. Workers installing reinforced windows. Metal frames being welded into place. Construction equipment everywhere. Her eyebrows lifted. Are you building a bunker or something? I shrugged. Renovating. Shin Kong stepped closer. Looks expensive. It is. He studied me for a moment. You win the lottery and suddenly start turning a house into a fortress? His tone was joking. But his eyes were searching. I kept my voice calm. Just being careful. My ex crossed her arms. You didn't even tell me you won. That's because we're not together. Her smile faded. So that text message was serious? Yes. She looked genuinely annoyed now. You dumped me over text. You cheated. That shut her up for about 2 seconds. Then she rolled her eyes. Everyone cheats sometimes. Shin Kong laughed quietly beside her. That was the moment I understood something. In my previous life, these two didn't just betray me. They were also careless. And careless people talk. A lot. Congratulations on the house, Shin Kong said casually. Thanks. Hope it keeps you safe. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten, because it sounded less like a joke, and more like a warning. 2 days later, the rumors started. It began with small things. A hardware store clerk asking why I needed so many locks. A cashier joking about my doomsday shopping. Then neighbors started noticing the trucks. Construction workers coming and going. Solar panels being installed. Security doors being reinforced. People talk. And rumors grow. By the 5th day, someone had posted online about the crazy lottery guy building a survival bunker. The post went viral locally. Thousands of comments. Most were jokes. But some weren't. One comment stood out. If he's hoarding supplies, someone should report it. Another said, people like this will cause shortages. Then someone posted my address. That's when I knew the situation had just escalated. Because in the apocalypse, panic spreads faster than infection. And right now, panic was starting early. The renovation finished on day 10. Exactly on schedule. And that same evening, my parents arrived with my younger sister. When they walked into the villa and saw the reinforced doors, the solar panels, the storage rooms, they looked at me like I'd lost my mind. So I told them the truth. The world ends in 10 days. Silence filled the room. My sister laughed first. Good one. My mom walked over and touched my forehead. You're not sick, are you? I'm serious, I said. They didn't believe me. Of course they didn't. So I gave them proof. Old man G from our village is going to die tonight. My parents froze. Don't say things like that, my father snapped. He's healthy. Worked in the fields 2 days ago. I didn't argue, because in my previous life, that exact thing happened. Old man G slipped on a hillside while walking home. He died that same night in the hospital. So we waited. Dinner was quiet. Mom cooked a full table of food. The smell alone almost made me emotional. It had been months since I'd eaten food like that in my last life. Halfway through the meal, my father's phone rang. He stood up and walked to the balcony. When he came back, his face was pale. The G family called, he said quietly. My mother stopped eating. What happened? Dad lit a cigarette. Old man G died tonight. No one laughed after that. 9 days left until the apocalypse. And we were still dangerously underprepared. So the next morning, I bought a semi-truck. A massive one. My father used to drive long-haul trucks years ago. He looked at the vehicle and nodded. Still remember how. We drove to another city. Not local stores. Not places that would recognize me. Big warehouses. Wholesale markets. I told the managers we were donating supplies to remote villages. Tight schedule. Urgent shipment. Money talks. Soon forklifts were loading the truck non-stop. Cooking oil. Snacks. Self-heating meals. Bottled water. Boxes stacked higher and higher. We practically emptied an entire warehouse. When we finished loading, the truck was completely full. And that's when the real trouble started. Because someone had been watching us. The moment we pulled out of the warehouse parking lot, a police car started following. At first I thought it was coincidence. Then another one joined. 2 cars behind us. My father glanced at the mirrors. Son, yeah. I think we're about to have a problem. He was right. Because 5 minutes later, the police lights turned on. And that's how I ended up surrounded in a parking lot. Cameras everywhere. Officers shouting. People recording. One officer grabbed my arm. Step out of the vehicle. I slowly climbed down from the truck. Another officer pointed at the trailer. What's in there? Food. How much food? Enough. The officer narrowed his eyes. Enough for what? That was the moment the crowd started whispering. Hoarder. Scalper. Black market supplies. Someone yelled. This guy is stealing food from people. Phones were filming from every direction. Public humiliation. Exactly the kind that spreads online in minutes. But the worst part came next. Because through the crowd, I saw 2 familiar faces. My ex-girlfriend. And Shimkong. Standing there. Watching. Smiling. And I suddenly realized something terrifying. They hadn't just spread rumors. They had called the police. And now the entire city believed I was the villain. The officer pulled open the back of the semi-truck. Inside were mountains of supplies. Rice. Cooking oil. Water. Canned food stacked floor to ceiling. The crowd behind the police line gasped. One woman shouted. That's enough food for a town. Another voice yelled. He's stockpiling while everyone else struggles. Phones kept recording. Someone was live streaming. Within minutes, the video was already spreading online. The officer turned toward me. Care to explain why you're transporting this much food? I kept my voice steady. I bought it legally. That's not the question. He pointed to the truck. Why do you need this much? I looked at the sky for a moment. Gray clouds. Same kind I remembered from the day the outbreak started. Because in 6 days, I said quietly, none of this will matter anymore. The officer frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could answer, someone pushed through the crowd. My ex-girlfriend. And right behind her, Shimkong. She pointed directly at me. That's him. The officer looked between us. You know this man? Yes, she said quickly. He just won $40 million and now he's hoarding food all over the city. The crowd erupted again. See, I knew it. He's buying everything before prices go up. Shimkong stepped forward, pretending to look concerned. We were worried about him, he said. He's been acting paranoid, talking about disasters. Then he leaned closer to the officer. You might want to check his house too. That was the moment I realized their real plan. They weren't just humiliating me. They wanted access. If the police seized the supplies, chaos would follow. And chaos meant opportunity. Opportunity for people like them. But there was nothing I could say that would convince the crowd. So I stayed quiet. The officer studied me for a moment. Then he sighed. Look, buying large amounts of food isn't illegal. The crowd murmured in disappointment. But, he continued, given the complaints we received, we're going to inspect the cargo. He climbed into the truck. One officer after another followed. They opened boxes, checked receipts. Everything matched. Every single purchase was legal. Eventually the lead officer climbed down and wiped his hands. Everything checks out. The crowd groaned. Someone shouted, he's still a hoarder. But the officer ignored them. He looked at me. You're free to go. My ex-girlfriend's smile vanished. Shin Kang's jaw tightened. Their plan had failed. But they weren't finished yet. Because as I climbed back into the truck, Shin Kang said something quietly. Something only I could hear. Doesn't matter. I paused. Why? He smiled. Because when things get bad, people will remember who has the food. Then he walked away. And that sentence stayed in my head the entire drive home. Because he wasn't wrong. 6 days left. Then 5. Then 4. The supplies filled almost every room in the villa. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. Freezers packed with meat. Water tanks full. Solar panels tested. Doors reinforced. We were ready. But the world outside was starting to crack. News reports about strange infections. Hospitals overwhelmed. Cities reporting violent incidents. The same pattern I remembered. Only this time, I was prepared. 3 days before the outbreak, the government announced emergency measures. Travel restrictions. Curfews. People panicked. Supermarkets emptied in hours. Long lines formed everywhere. And that's when my phone started exploding. Unknown numbers. Messages. People begging. How did you know? Do you still have food? Please help my family. I ignored them. Because helping one person meant exposing everything. And exposure meant death. The final day arrived quietly. No sirens. No warnings. Just another normal morning. Until noon. That's when the first video appeared online. A man attacking people in a hospital waiting room. Security dragging him away. Except he kept biting. Even after being restrained. The comments exploded. Some people called it fake. Others said drugs. I knew the truth. 2 hours later, the power grid failed. The city went dark. And the screaming started. Night fell quickly. Through the reinforced windows we could see fires in the distance. Cars crashing. People running. Then the first zombies appeared. Slow. Confused. But multiplying fast. My mother stood beside me at the window. Her voice trembling. You knew. I nodded. Yes. Behind us, my father checked the reinforced doors. My sister organized supplies. For the first time, they believed me completely. Outside the chaos grew louder. Gunshots. Sirens. Then silence. Days passed. The city collapsed faster than I expected. By day 4, the streets were filled with the dead. And the living were worse. Groups of survivors started searching houses. Breaking doors. Stealing food. Sometimes killing for it. But our villa held. The walls were strong. The soundproofing worked. No one knew we were there. Until the 7th night. When someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. My father grabbed his rifle. Stay behind me. We checked the camera. 2 figures outside the gate. Dirty. Desperate. Even through the camera, I recognized them instantly. My ex-girlfriend. And Shin Kang. They looked thinner. Terrified. Begging. She spoke through the intercom. Please, we know you're in there. No response. Shin Kang stepped closer to the gate. You have supplies, he said. Help us. I remembered the parking lot. The police. The crowd filming. Their smiles. My finger hovered over the microphone. For a moment, I considered helping. Then I remembered something else. In my previous life. The day I died. The people who led the raiders to my house. It had been them. They traded my location. For food. So I pressed the button. You made your choice already. Silence. My ex started crying. Shin Kang's face twisted with anger. You can't survive forever in there. Maybe he was right. But tonight wasn't that night. I turned off the camera. And walked away. Outside, their voices faded into the darkness. The world had finally become exactly what I remembered. But this time, my family was alive. And for the first time since I woke up holding that lottery ticket, I felt something close to peace. Because preparation isn't paranoia. It's survival. And survival belongs to the people who see the storm before it arrives.